Hi, my name is Olutimi Sasono. I welcome you again to this platform where we discuss contemporary issues as regards national development. Today, we'll be focusing on Africa. I have my very good friend here, Mudu from Gambia, who will be giving us the Gambian perspective. Welcome, Mudu. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you, Olu, for having me.
All right.
I'm honored to be here.
Okay. Um, to start with, we won't be dwelling too much on the challenges, but of course, we need to highlight some of the challenges that have kept us where we are in Africa. So maybe you mention a few of them that tops your charts that you think is responsible for keeping Africa at the low income cadre. Africa has not been able to develop. Africa has not been able to industrialize. We've not been able to utilize natural resources. What do you think is responsible for this?
Okay, thank you once again. Uh, I know this is a complex, thing to discuss.
Yeah.
Basically, I don't, claim to be claim to have the answer for it,
Uh,
but I will definitely love to share my, opinions, as far as Africa's challenges are concerned. Basically, I think our challenges are multifaceted and complex in nature.
yeah.
But to but I could say we are making progress despite all the odds. Africa is also making some progress. Yeah, but like you said, notwithstanding, it's good to also highlight our challenges and acknowledge that these are our realities, and then try to see how those things could be addressed.
Mm.
In my problem, I think basically our problems could start from leadership, but I would also love to borrow recently from Professor Piero Lumumba, the Kenyan,
Professor.
Pan-African, who said, people used to say, like your famous Chinua Achebe said that the problem of Nigeria is essentially and fundamentally problem of leadership, which could apply generally, to all African countries. Okay, but Lumumba also said recently that the problem is not just about leadership, but we also have problem of followership. I
Mm.
think we have to start from there because once we have the good leadership and a proper followership in terms of how we elect our leaders, the quality of men and women we elect into public offices, maybe the change could start from there.
Mm.
Yeah, we have other problems considering a lot of challenges in terms of trade barriers, trade and non-trade barriers among African countries. I will acknowledge the fact that of recent we have the Agenda 2063, which was signed by the African heads of states in 2013, which is a 50-year project. It's about the Africa we want to promote trade, free movement of goods and services, integration among other things. It has 7 pillars, which is very good. I think it's a good, it's a good trajectory. And if it is properly implemented, I think we could address a lot of problems,
Mm.
especially free movement of goods, because African countries are very vulnerable economically because most countries are very small. You take, for instance, my country, a very
Mm.
small market of just 2 million.
Yeah.
So if we are close and we don't have access to the market, definitely it's going to be a problem because even, data will show you that, intra-African trade is the least globally. It stands around, around 23%, which is far short, in compared with other continents. So which tells you that we have a lot to do, as far as integrating our economies are concerned if we really want to address our problems. And then we
Mm.
have a lot of problem. People will always talk about the debt burden. Africa, since independence, we still continue to rely on debt.
Mm.
Debt is not a problem. Borrowing is not the problem.
Yeah.
But how do we manage the debts?
What do you use the funds for?
That could be the million-dollar questions.
Yeah.
Because even Germany, after the Second World War, they borrowed a lot of money. But after some time, They were even giving loans to other countries. Singapore and the other Asian tigers, they were borrowing. But today you could see they were able to manage debts, and they are no longer dependent on debts. So even last year, I could remember the African leaders in the World Bank IMF summit, also trying to demand that international monetary and macro
Mm.
policies must be designed to also address African needs. When things are designed and Africans are not involved, obviously it may not address our problems. So I think, in short, these are major problems. The
Mm.
political instability is still a problem. A lot of countries, still have a lot of, internal conflicts. You talk about the Sahel region, you talk about in East Africa, Ethiopia, and within Ethiopia and even within her neighbors. If we continue to exist like this, definitely there will always be problems. I think these are fundamental things we need to address. If we look at even the Agenda 2063, it has its first 10-year plan, which includes the silencing of the gun, which includes
Yeah.
eradication of extreme poverty, among other basic things. But today, wars are as roaring as they have never been before.
Mm.
So these are some fundamental issues I think we need to address as a continent,
Yeah.
to move forward.
Wow. You raised so many issues.
Mm.
You started with leadership. You went into trade, and these are very fundamental issues. So let me take you on leadership, which you started with. Of course, we know that we have great deficit of leadership in Africa. Most African countries still struggle with electing good leaders. Um, and we've seen recently the developments of change of governments, the coup
Mm.
that is spreading like wildfire. The most recent is Niger, you know, and this is an expression of dissatisfaction of leadership. It is not really an embrace of dictatorship or an embrace of the military rule, but of course, it's just a statement to say the leadership in there are not giving us the dividends of democracy. They are not giving us good governance. So, how do you think we begin to look at this leadership perspective? How do we get the right people into the right office? Because it appears that the elective positions have been held ransom by by some elites that have undermined uh, good governance. So, how do good people get into the office?
I will, just like you said, in most countries you can see the leadership has been hijacked by the so-called elites, who does everything, to you know to retain power, to
Yeah,
retain power. I will still come back to Piero Lumumba because I have so much respect for him.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he is right with the followership.
Mm.
We the African people, the masses must rise up to the task, and then put aside our differences. We cannot continue to be electing our leaders on the basis of tribes, on the basis of religion,
Mm.
and other form of sectional consciousness.
Yeah.
This is what is haunting us, and that is why when they mess up, we hold them to account.
Mm.
And most of them, in fact, will continue to will try to use some of those things, religion, tribe, and other things, to retain themselves into power. So these are things that we need to address. We need to, you know, be conscious with the type of people we elect into politics, people with integrity, people with vision, people who are willing to serve the interests of the people. Because look at even elections. Most of the times you look at the candidates or the political parties. Sometimes, you begin to wonder what agenda do they have for the people? Or in fact, what is the difference between candidate A or candidate B?
Yeah.
They are not presenting any difference, and people are not demanding. I could remember sometime even Lumumba said it. We must demand from our leaders if we want results. So this
Mm,
is where it need to start from. The
mm,
people must rise up and then elect people that are credible, that has an agenda for the people that is in line with the interests of the people. And then also we must keep vigilant. Whenever they mess up, we need to hold them into account.
mm,
So that is very, very important because we have a lot of people in Africa, competent individuals.
mm,
Why are they not venturing into politics?
mm,
Because our politics is full of immoralities, and that is why it's not attracting the best minds.
mm,
So that trajectory has to change. We need to change the trend. We need to make sure that our politics is able to attract the best minds of our people, the
mm.
best people of our society.
Yeah.
That is all has to come down to the people again, on the way we select our leaders, and we make sure that we put the right people into office, not based on tribe or religion or culture or whatsoever, but based on people who has a proper agenda that can represent our interests. That is very
Mm,
important, and I think it's beginning to happen. Some countries are trying, and you could
yeah.
see the reason why there are a lot of political instability is
Mm,
because some people you can see the military. Some course I could say is somehow justifiable, because when the government are not serving interests, but yet still continue to serve the interests of the former colonial masters or other
yeah.
powers, the people will rise up,
Mm,
and these things are needed sometimes, to change the ball game.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. When we talk about politics and development, it's something we can't separate because you can't just talk about them independently. And the politics of Africa is so unique. Um, I think one of the challenges is that the elite group they have been able to weaponize poverty. Now, there's a place where there's a level where you weaponize poverty such that the electorates uh, they begin to lack the cognitive ability to make choices. you know uh, you have impoverished them, you deny them education. One of the gains of education is that you're able to make informed decisions. You're able to look at the bigger picture. Your horizon has been broadened, that you can look at things globally, locally, have different perspective. But you deny these people education. You deny them basic amenities. You have psychologically defeated them. Then they become a weapon, they become a tool, they become people that you can easily sway.
yeah, because people are left to be vulnerable.
Yeah, of
How
course.
comes after 60 years up to today, our politics is still languishing around basic services? Whenever we have, whenever we have elections, they still now the campaign is around basic services, water, electricity, education, health facilities. Look at the
It's
serious societies after 50 countries. They are no longer talking about basic services. They are talking about other things, fiscal policies. They are
mm,
talking about, foreign policies. How can they influence the world? How can we, influence the world for our own interests?
yeah.
They are talking about nanotechnologies. You name them. But we cannot continue on up to 50 years, like you said. That is still the problem. That is why
Mm,
people are so vulnerable to the extent that sometimes they would rather take a bag of rice, and give you their vote,
yeah,
than listen to other stories. So these are some unfortunate things, that needs to be addressed. And like you said, that is why building the human resource is very important.
it's key.
Yeah, because human beings at every level we have needs. At birth, people are talking. Human beings at birth, it's about survival. What are their needs to survive?
Exactly.
And then also from there you have the development stages. People needs, our children, example, at that level will need proper nutrition and so on to survive.
Absolutely.
And then also there are developmental stages where they need, example, education, to be able to survive,
Yeah.
and proper healthcare and nutrition. And then people also at productive age where they need
Mm,
to be trained in sectors, that are productive and rising areas of the economy, so that they'll be able to acquire jobs or
yeah.
even create
Create
their own
jobs.
jobs for
Yeah.
themselves.
and
You
employ
know,
people.
exactly. And old age, people need certain social protections. Do we have those kind of plans in place for all these, category of people of our society? These are
All right.
things that we definitely need to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we won't dedicate the whole of this session to politics,
Yeah.
that also brings me to the areas of infrastructural deficits in most African nations. Uh, you can't separate infrastructure from development. Infrastructure is the foundation for
Mm.
development. And of course, infrastructure is capital intensive. Uh, as I speak, there's no road to my village in Nigeria. Aha. So that is infrastructure.
Mm.
The farmer there producing his goods have no good road to bring it to the city to sell. They make no profit, little or no profit. So those are the issues.
Mm.
So we can't, of course, industrialize without
Having
infrastructural
the problem.
development.
Yeah.
And again,
Mm.
you touched on trade between African countries.
Mm.
Yeah, we also have to talk about the infrastructures.
Yeah.
Are there rail services? In fact, what is the connectivity between most African nations? Although another argument uh, for the very low intertrade between African countries is that because we are at the same level of industrialization,
Mm.
we produce some primary goods uh, such that they are common.
Yeah.
They are common
We
goods.
import them without adding any
No
value or
value,
very little value.
no value
Mm.
to it. So why should I export my beans to Gambia when Gambia is producing beans?
Mm.
Why
Yeah.
should I export my
Yeah.
cassava to
Yeah.
Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Now we have not been able to process and bring up unique
Mm.
goods and all that. So that's one of the arguments. But
Mm.
let's talk about the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Uh, the the lack of capital to power our infrastructure. Let's talk about how do we go about this? Because you can't achieve industrialization without solving the problem of infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Infrastructure is key
yeah.
to economic development. And this is a problem, especially within sub Saharan African countries.
Mm,
Today, for instance, if you want to export goods, let's say a container from the United States to the port of Mombasa in Kenya, it
mm,
will cost you maybe $40.
mm,
But exporting the same good from Mombasa to, let's say, to Kampala in Uganda, it may cost $120.
mm,
Why? Why should that? All the way, a good can travel all the way from the United States to Mombasa for $40, but the price will triple just from Kenya to
yeah.
Uganda. That is unfortunate. That shows you the level of our infrastructure, how poor our infrastructure is, and then also the trade and the non-trade barriers that continues to be a bottleneck between African countries.
Mm,
This is something we need to address, and consider as a priority.
mm.
African countries must work together, and then try to improve on the infrastructure. When I hear from PLO talking about his dream of one day having a railway line that will run from Addis Ababa to Dakar in Senegal or to Banjul in the Gambia, okay, maybe having another one that will run from maybe Cairo in Egypt down
Yeah.
to Johannesburg in South Africa. That
Mm,
will be amazing. Imagine how much that will be able to contribute
mm,
in improving our economy in terms of free movement of goods and services.
yeah.
It's very important. The infrastructure is key. So we need to do a lot together. African countries must cooperate, remove the barriers, and then try to work on connecting routes that will connect us as African countries.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The intercontinental connection,
Yeah.
in transportation and all that.
Mm.
Also, we have visa issues.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to get some African visas than even to get some European visas. There are so many issues,
Yeah.
but charity begins at home. You have not developed your infrastructure back home. You don't have sufficient funds to to develop
Yeah.
your infrastructure back home. So how do you begin to look at intercontinental infrastructure? For example, there is a railway from Kano to Maradi, Niger, that was um, that was constructed in the last administration in Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, when that got to the news, it was a problem.
Mm.
Nigerians reacted, oh, you've not solved your internal problem. Why are you connecting rail, to another country
Yeah.
and all that,
Mm.
And for policy makers, of course, we know the economic impact
Mm.
of opening up a trade route, to other countries,
Mm.
what you can push through there,
Mm.
so it has very great economic impact. But
Mm.
for the ordinary citizens, they don't understand why, because all they need to wake up to is to have good roads, to have good electricity, to have water, to have all this infrastructure
Mm.
first before you begin to talk about uh, connecting to another country.
Mm.
So it's also an issue of priority, but how do we begin to uh, access funds
Okay.
for this massive infrastructural deficit?
Yeah, that is very important.
Mm,
Let me touch the visa issue first before coming to this. Yeah, I think something is beginning to happen.
yeah.
Uh, Gambia, I will credit Gambia and Seychelles, who were the only two countries, that's waive visa for all African countries, which is
Mm,
good. And recently, last year, we have seen Rwanda,
Rwanda,
and then
yeah.
also Kenya, also following steps, which
Mm,
is good. And I hope other countries will follow suit,
mm,
because we are common people. We need to, remove these barriers and
mm,
then try to integrate our market and
yeah.
our people. So the infrastructure, coming back to the infrastructure, is important. Of course, like we said, it's good to start from home. But I think for us to develop as a country, as a continent, we need to look at things beyond our countries,
Yeah.
individual countries.
Mm,
Through that we can develop together. Because individually we are small.
mm,
Yeah, looking at our respective countries, but if we have one common market and then we have infrastructure that is able to connect us, that will improve a lot our trade relationships and the free movement of goods and services. Because for instance, let's say the issue of maybe Nigeria is producing a lot of oil, but Gambia cannot produce. If there are good road networks, things can easily flow. One country may be producing a lot of cocoa and other countries have shortage of cocoa or maize.
mm,
Things can easily move.
yeah.
Do you understand? Every country cannot, it does not need every country to produce everything.
Yeah.
Certain countries may have certain
You
areas of,
leverage on your advantage.
exactly. At the end, everyone will benefit, which is very
Mm,
good. So building the infrastructure is important. How do we do that? First of all, individual governments must show commitment. And
mm,
then our regional governments, you could
mm,
talk about the ECOWAS, the SADC, the uh, uh, East African Community,
yeah.
the Maghreb, and so on. They need to step up, because the reason why we have these regional bodies is to promote regional integration,
Yeah.
and economic development. So they need to step up and then try to play that coordination role among individual countries
Yeah.
to make sure that we are able to remove the barriers, and then we are also able to, get the necessary funds to, to build our infrastructure.
Mm,
Government also must try to, you know, go into must try to also engage partners, because no government can do it all. But public-private partnership, and then also including engaging other, foreign partners is also very
yeah.
important. We can come into partnership that are mutually beneficial. It doesn't have to be a situation where they give us little and then exploit us and
Yeah.
then benefit big. It doesn't have to be that. But we must try to engage other partners, how we can partner to make sure that we know we are able to, benefit, in terms of, infrastructural, development, in terms of, transfer of technology, which is very important, because that
Yeah.
is important. Because today certain countries may have certain technologies that we don't have, but if we are able to go into those kind of negotiations, to make sure some of those technologies, are available, we can be able to build our infrastructure. Yeah, so I think those things are very important. Public-private partnership, the regional blocs and the African Union, must, be committed to the text. And then individual governments too, must work together through their regions and through the African agenda, to be able to build the necessary infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. One area we're not looking at is the domestic capacity. I just believe that most African countries have not been able to maximize their capacity to generate revenue. Um, Most African countries find their development partners. It's so convenient for leaders to run to World Bank to ask for loans and all that, which is okay. Attract foreign direct investment, which is okay. But what are we doing locally? Um, what's how much can we generate? Locally, are we just being lazy, going the traditional route of, oh, let's just borrow to fund our budgets, let's borrow to do this, borrow to do that? As you said, it's not just about borrowing. Borrowing is okay, but what are you borrowing for? What is the counterpart fund you are bringing to the table? You know, that's one issue that have not been well addressed.
Mm.
Uh, have we been able to expand our tax base? Have we been able to cut down unnecessary expenses and block loopholes, addressing issues of corruption, looting of funds, and all that? Have we been able to do all this? You know, it's not just about borrowing and all that, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I believe national governments should begin to look at what they can do
Mhm.
domestically, locally. Have we been able to, Gambia, for example, your tourism is top notch. Gambia is also agricultural producing,
Yeah. Yeah.
country, though it's small, but within your capacity, of course. I don't know. Have you achieved self sufficiency in food production?
That has always been the dream. uh, but I hope government will do something to address that, because it's a small country. We are talking about 2 point maybe 5 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah, definitely. And the land is available. We have fresh water. In the
Mm,
country. So I think we can achieve it if we are serious about it. Yeah. So you are very right. Domestic increasing the domestic revenue is very very
mm,
important, and I think this is sometimes where we even have problem.
mm,
The loopholes have too much,
mm,
tax evasions
mm.
and so on. Is too much. There are a lot of loopholes. We
Yeah.
are not collecting the adequate revenue that we're supposed to collect from tax. How comes in, if you look at sub-Saharan African countries, the tax collection revenue only amounts to maybe one-sixth of our budget, of
Mm,
our GDP.
mm,
Sorry. But if you go to the OECD countries, their tax collection is like is over one third of their GDP. So it's like
mm,
they are collecting a lot of tax compared with us.
mm,
But what is stopping us? Because the loopholes are many. There are a lot of loopholes that we need to, address, try to fill those gaps so that we can collect the adequate revenue that we're supposed to collect. Because
mm,
without enough revenue, there cannot be, essential development. So
mm,
those are things that we need to address. And like you said, also attracting investors is key. There's a lot we need to do, creating the enabling environment, good
mm,
governance. The reason why there are a lot of coup d'etats and so on, it has to do with governance. If there's proper governance in place, and then address inequality, address the issue of poverty, address the issue of unemployment, I think there will be less problem. And
mm.
these are some things that are fundamentals. If we don't address them, there will always be a lot of armed groups, and you could
Yeah.
see there's no shortage of them from one country to the other. We have them in numbers,
Mm,
and usually these are organizations made of agri youths. who feel
Mm.
that they are not employed or they are not inclusive in the national cake,
Yeah.
and then they have to take up arms, as a means of survival. These
Mm.
are unfortunate. But if we improve our governance system and then try to provide basic services, to our people, try to address poverty, I believe, we can address that problem. Yeah, so that is why generating a lot of revenue is important. Creating the enabling environment to attract investors is
Mm.
very, very important. I could see
Yeah.
a lot of countries now trying to do that. Partnering with the private sector. To get to ensure that there are meaningful developments in their countries, which is good. Which we need to do. More. To make sure that in the end, the people, the country benefits and Africa benefits,
Yeah.
because we have the market. Africa is over 1 billion people. We have a youthful population. And then also, most importantly, the youths who constitute the biggest number of the population. They need to be looked into their
Mm.
needs. Youths needs to be trained. And then also they need to acquire skills. Do you understand that are in line with the emerging market? We
Mm.
cannot continue to be training our youths on
Outdated
on
curriculum
outdated curriculum. Do you
that are
understand?
not
And then
relevant for the
for
the future and the
exactly
present.
exactly, that is the problem. That is the problem. That
Mm.
is why I could remember some time ago I was watching one interview. Botswana, the government trying to establish a human resource council
Mm.
where they could study the market and then advise students on what areas they need to study.
Mm.
Otherwise, students will continue to be studying economics. We'll graduate a lot of
The
economics, a lot of
the
in my
traditional
country,
courses.
a lot of political science students, a lot of
Yeah.
development studies science students. When the market is looking for engineers, is
Mm.
looking for people with other, soft skills,
Yeah.
and the youths don't have those skills. This
Mm.
continues to affect Africa, because in most sectors, today, technical success and other in the emerging market, we don't have our youths trained in those areas. So we
Mm.
have to continue to bring in the so-called experts from outside,
Mm.
paying them a lot of money, and then there'll be a lot of capital flights, and so on. So these are unfortunate. So these are things that we definitely need to, work into as
Yeah.
Africans.
Human
Yeah,
human resources is
human
very
resource.
key.
Yeah,
Yeah. One of the gains in Nigeria is the technological space.
yeah,
The youth have embraced the technology space, and it's a kind of the transfer of wealth now.
yeah,
Young Nigerians now, content creators, IT guys, most of them, the young Nigerians have dominated the space, and there are skills on high demands that uh, we need to begin to focus on. Like I think just September, was it September, October, at the Belt and Road Initiative Forum that was
okay,
held in China, just 2023. Uh, Vice President Kashim said that Nigeria wants to be Nigeria wants to strategically position itself to be one of the biggest exporter of human resources. That is one of the strategy. You know, we want to be a uh, a major exporter of human resources. We have the population
yeah,
hard, so we have the youthful population. So those are the some
yeah.
of the areas we need to
Mm,
begin to look at, and the tech space and all that.
yeah.
So that brings me to
And I think you are
the
already doing that, because today, any part of the world you go today, you see Nigerians
of course,
very industrious and
yeah,
very skillful, contributing.
yeah.
So if Nigeria should change, Africa will definitely change. And it's good that youths
we
are doing an amazing job now.
we're getting there.
Yeah,
It might take us some time. Fine. This era, nobody's patient anymore. Nobody wants to hear Agenda 2040 anymore.
no,
We want it to get it done now.
sure.
So the Gen Zs of now, they are not patient people that you give 30 years development plan. No, they want to see results now,
No, yeah.
and they are fast people. So we have to work with the tide of the now.
Mm,
So that's very important. um, I want us to come to the issue of diversification. which has been a major challenge.
Mm.
Successive governments in Nigeria, for example, we talk about diversifying economy,
Mm.
and we still find ourselves at this mono economy star where we're just, once you mention, for example, Nigeria, you all you remember is oil.
Yeah.
We've not been able to diversify. Look at United Arab Emirates; they were
Yes.
able to diversify, to look at the service sector, to plunge the oil money into other sectors,
Sectors.
to tourism, and all that, such that when you think of Dubai today, you hardly think of oil.